for Black History Month. Today's spotlight for Black History Month is on attorney Ethel Mitchell. Hey, welcome, Attorney Mitchell. How are you? Welcome. Welcome to our humble little podcast. Let you know. To let you know, glad to have you. So, Attorney Mitchell is an estate planning attorney in the Washington, D.C. suburban Maryland area. And she also is the host of 2 radio programs on the Radio 1 network in the D.C. area. You can hear her on WOL 1450 AM and 95.9 FM, Saturdays from 9 to 10 a.m. on her show. Did I get that right? 9 to 10 a.m.?
8:30 to 10.
8:30 to 10 a.m. 8:30 to 10 a.m. Check her out, WOL. It's Law Talk with Ethel Mitchell, where she has special guests to talk about, you guessed it, law.
Law and money.
Money. You can also subscribe right now to her podcast, Law Talk with Ethel Mitchell, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Attorney Mitchell, once again, we thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. All right, so my first question before we get into your lauded history, can you tell the audience just one thing that we can't Google about you right now?
Oh, sure. I am an avid, almost rabid Formula One fan. I absolutely love on racing. Yes. A lot of Americans don't realize that the 7-time world champion is a Black man. Lewis Hamilton England is a 7-time world champion of Formula One.
Wow.
He's considered by many the greatest of all times, you know? He almost made it 8 times this year. And that would have been more than anybody ever.
Have you
He's
met
already
him?
Wow. No, I haven't met him. I've been to a couple of races, but I haven't met him. I'd love to, but no.
So what is it like at those races? What is it like? I mean, I've been to I haven't been to a NASCAR race, but I've been in a NASCAR.
Oh wow, cool. That's cool. It's very exciting. It's very loud. It's very noisy. It's lots and lots of people. I've been to Canada. I went to the one in Montreal.
In Montreal, wonderful.
Yeah. I went to the one in Texas, which was huge. I think it's the biggest one. They had 380,000 people, I think. And it's just exciting. It's very, very exciting. It really is. So it's now on American cable TV. So when they start in March, you can find it on American TV. And they go all around the world. All around the world. That's another thing about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm sure we could not have Googled that about you for sure.
No, you could not have.
All right, so my first question is, you've been in law for about 25 years and helping families plan out their legacies since 2003?
Now before then, in DC in 2003.
Oh, so even before then, wow.
I lived in St. Thomas for years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How is that? I mean, being in the Caribbean islands.
Beautiful. I mean, it's like you can go swimming every day, literally every day. It's really paradise. I said I did my career backwards. People retired to the islands. I started.
That's my plan. My plan is to retire for sure. All right. So for those that out there that might be interested in following your path, can you tell us what your motivation was to get into law and eventually estate planning? And then describe what that road was like being a Black woman.
Well, my road was interesting in that I never wanted to be a lawyer. I was not, I'm not one of these people that grew up wanting to be a lawyer. No, I had a major advisor. I went to Fisk University, and my major advisor, Professor Curia, arranged for several of his top students to go to a summer program at Harvard Law School. And it was the beginning of what became CLEO, but it was where they took some top students from African American HBCUs, they call them now, and took us into Harvard Law We went to classes. We got to talk to big lawyers. We went to law firms. We talked to judges. We even talked to Thurgood Marshall came to one of our meetings, and that
Wow.
was just exciting. And so it was like, okay, maybe this is something I should look into, you know. And when I got into Columbia Law School, I went for 3 years. I did not want to work in New York at the time, but I didn't know what else to do. So even though I had a job, I managed to get a clerkship in St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands with a federal judge. And so I went to the islands. And when I got there, I was like, now, why should I go back to the cold?
Hmm. I wouldn't. I
And so I stayed and I started practicing law.
That's
I
awesome.
married, my husband was a lawyer. He had been in law school with me. We had two children. And it took four hurricanes to blow me out of there. It really did.
Oh, I
So
guess
I
that
never,
would do it.
yeah, that's what did it. I did not have the difficulty many Black women especially tell me they have in the United States because the judges, the government were Black and they respected you.
Hmm.
They were not disrespectful. They accepted that you were smart and
Hmm.
that they respected what you had to say. I mean, so
Totally
I
different
never
environment.
totally different environment. It really was. And
Mhm.
so I guess I'm just lucky, but I really didn't have the kind of problems that I hear a lot of my sister lawyers have, even now, because
Mhm.
um, my daughter's a lawyer. She has two baby sisters. One of them is a lawyer, and one of them is here in D.C. And she tells me some real difficult stories about how they're treated, and it's not
Mhm.
good.
Like
But
what?
I haven't had that
If you don't mind
experience,
me
I must
asking.
say. I
How is
pardon?
she treated? Like what? How is she treated? If you don't mind me
Well,
asking.
mostly it's good, but sometimes there's not the respect that you would expect from, different parts of the court system. And I think she's very compassionate, and so she feels for how the defendants and her clients
Mhm.
are also having to deal with stuff. So it's
Mhm.
just a hard system. I never liked criminal law. I
Got it.
never did. Some of it I had to in the Virgin Islands, but otherwise I didn't do it. Yeah.
So
But
you focus on estate planning.
I love estate planning because I love families.
Mhm.
I love I have seen the difference that it makes. I've been doing it long enough now where I'm now on three generations of the same families in several cases. So I
That's
did
awesome.
the grandparents trust and their wills, and how I see how what I did helped to pass down to the children who are now in their 50s, and 60s in some cases. And they've been able to take what their grandparents left, what their parents left them, and expanded on that in many instances, starting their own businesses. They have their own families, they have their own money. And one family in particular just really grew,
Hmm.
from what the parents left them. And now their children, who are now in their 30s and 40s, are being able to build on that same foundation.
Oh,
And that's what estate planning does.
yeah.
And that's why I love it so much. I really do. It makes a big difference. A lot
So,
of clients tell me it makes a difference. Yeah.
so in a past life, I used to sell life insurance. Um,
Okay.
Mhm.
Well,
and
that's
I mean, it was years
refreshing.
ago, but past life. So, but
Uh-huh.
one thing I noticed in sitting, I sat with Black families, white families, Asians, Latinos. But I found one striking thing with Black families. And
Hmm.
of course, not all families, but generally speaking, is it was a hesitancy to talk about death. Um,
Hmm.
and on top of that, a limited knowledge of the importance of passing on wealth.
Yeah.
Now, I know certain ethnic groups have a history of talking money, business, wealth at the dinner table, or at least that's what they've been generalized to be doing. Um,
Hmm.
but that wasn't happening in my family, particularly. And I hear from many Black families in my generation that wasn't happening. I am
Hmm.
seeing it happening more now. But my
Hmm.
question is, can you talk a bit about the value of passing on wealth, and then tell me what you're seeing these days in the Black community versus previous generation?
Well, one of the things that, let me give you some statistics which surprise me that we don't often hear. According to Pew Research, there are 46.8 million people in the United States who identify as African Americans, roughly 14% of the country. 47% of them own their own homes.
Mm.
Okay. According to Wikipedia, 6 of 10 Black men will make it into the middle class. 27% of Black people in general earn an income between 25 and 50,000. 15 earn between 50,000 and 75,000. 7.6% earn between 75,000 and 100,000, and fully 9% earn over $100,000. There are 8% of U.S. millionaires are African American. So that means that there are almost 1.7 million African American millionaires.
Wow.
So there's a lot more money in the African American community than we realize. And what I'm starting to see is that people, especially like in this area, in the DC metropolitan area, are beginning to see how valuable, especially their properties are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody told people that their house would go for $600,000. And that's not uncommon. I've had clients have sold properties that they inherited that their parents bought for $20,000. They sell them for $800,000 and $900,000. And so, in order to pass that wealth on, you've got to put it in writing. And a lot of African Americans are good savers. That's something we aren't told, but they really save well.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
because
true.
a lot of African Americans are in, once discrimination reduced itself, where more of our young people could go into good jobs, now they've got 401ks.
Investing.
They've got life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
They still, a lot of people invest in their 401ks. They really do. We've really taken advantage of that. And so by doing that, people will walk in the office and they got $300,000 and $400,000 in their 401k.
Mm-hmm.
You see, that doesn't even count life insurance. It doesn't count the value of their house.
Yep.
It doesn't count the value of brokerage, accounts. And so the idea that you need to do something to make sure that wealth goes where you want it to go is
Yep.
beginning to get more traction in our community. And a lot of people have horror stories about, families that lost everything because so and so died and they didn't have a will, or somebody
Or a
stole the
trust.
money or stole the property or
Yeah.
whatever. And I must say, COVID made everybody realize you don't get out of here alive. You just don't. You're gonna leave. You're not gonna take nothing with you. And like I say on my show, somebody's gonna live in your house, and somebody's gonna. Okay,
Huh.
and that's just the reality of it. So you might as well control it by having a will, having a trust, and making sure that it goes the way you want it to go.
Absolutely.
But it's an evolution. You know what I mean? It's something that more people are starting to do as they realize they got something to leave.
Yep.
And it makes a big difference. It really does. Yeah.
Let me get Rob B. Rock in here. I see we have Michael Template on saying watching he's watching from Louisiana. That's awesome.
Oh,
Thank you,
oh,
Michael Template.
raised in Louisiana.
Robbie,
Raised in the city.
what's your question, Robbie?
So just a quick one. What tips do you have for someone who isn't sure how to start, where to begin?
Well, number one, go to a lawyer. Don't try and do these documents yourself. Don't try to get a form or have it done online. I've had too many people bring to me after somebody dies a will, and you can't get it admitted into court, and so go to a lawyer, please. Um, Make sure your beneficiary designations are what you want. That's a biggie. That's very simple to do. So if you have life insurance, if you have retirement accounts, if you have, like most people do, okay, bank accounts, as long as your beneficiaries are adults and you don't want to put any kind of, limitations on when they can get it, just fill out the beneficiary forms. So let's say you have a life insurance policy. I'm
I do.
sure
Hmm.
can tell you if you have a life insurance policy and you want your wife or your children who
Hmm.
are adults. Be careful with minors; it's a little bit different. But as long as you want minors, I mean, sorry, adults to be the beneficiaries, just name them on your beneficiary
Yep.
of your insurance policies, your retirement accounts, even on your bank accounts. Every bank account has a payable on death beneficiary designation.
Hmm.
Fill it out. It really makes it much easier for everybody that you are leaving behind.
Let
Okay,
me.
and do it while you're young. You can always change these things.
So
Young
let me.
people have a tendency to think that they're not gonna die.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's gonna happen,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this
So
question. So if, let's say, for example, I fill out those beneficiary forms and I change my mind and I write it in a will, does the will uh,
no, beneficiary form
override? No?
overrides the will.
Okay.
So those beneficiary forms are important.
Those are very
So
important. Okay.
here they are what you want them to be.
Okay.
Another thing that a lot of people don't realize, if you are married, a lot of people, especially men, assume that their wife is gonna get everything. The law doesn't work like that.
Hmm.
Every state is different. But the wife, unless you say so, either in a will or on your beneficiary designation, the wife does not get everything. If you have
Okay.
children, the children are going to share. And if they're minors, the wife may not be the guardian of the money for the children. That doesn't happen that way. And even if you don't have children, your parents inherit with your wife. Okay.
Okay.
And that's a big surprise to a lot of people because
Yeah, I
I've
think
had husbands come to me and they assume that when their
I
wife
assumed
died,
that.
hello, yes, that's why I'm saying it. There are a lot of men who assume that when they die, their wife is going to get everything.
Hmm.
If you don't have a will, or her name is not on your bank account, or and on your the property title, for your house,
Hmm.
then she will have to share with your parents.
Hmm.
And I've had several
Hmm.
situations where the parents don't get along with the spouse,
Mm-mm.
and it's just a royal
I can't
mess.
have
It
that.
really is.
Yeah.
Ugh,
Right.
yeah,
I
Right.
can't have
That's,
that.
yeah.
I
So you got to
can't have that.
As a,
okay. Yeah. You got, and so
as a,
what I think is if you should have a will, you should go to a lawyer. If you are married or you're in a significant relationship, it doesn't have to be married, but if you live with somebody, y'all put your money together, you're paying your bills together, and that's who you would want to get your money, or that's who you'd want to get the house that you're buying together, or whatever.
Mhm.
Do a will and make sure they do a will that says, when I die, I want this person to get my stuff.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then go through your beneficiary designations, your life insurance, your transfer on death is what it's called when it's a brokerage account, your retirement accounts, all those things, because it makes a huge difference. It really does.
Yeah.
It really does.
So
Yeah.
Jacqueline Robinson online says, "My husband sold life insurance, and his book quotes consisted mostly of black folks who only thought life insurance was for burial purposes. Trying
Yeah.
to sell whole life and universal policies was like pulling teeth, and that's what I was running into as well. It
Yeah.
was it was the whole sense of the only reason you get life insurance is to bury someone, and it was
Well,
I had to re-educate,
our culture.
and even then, it it was hard to for them to hear that. Um,
Yeah. You have to understand that's cultural.
yep.
That a lot of us don't know our own history, and so let me just tell you a little bit about that. The first, I shouldn't say the first, but one of the first black millionaires was a Mr. Gaskin in Alabama, and he made his money. He didn't. He started out with quarters. He started out poor. His mother cleaned houses and all. And what used to happen was when black people died, there was no money to bury them with, and they would have to collect
Mm,
money
Mhm.
to bury somebody. Okay,
Mhm.
even today, when somebody dies, I remember my mother died. I got checks for $25 because that was how people used to do it. Okay, years ago, they would put together to bury each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so Gaskin came up with the idea of if everybody gave me a quarter for each pay period, I would guarantee you that you would have a good burial, a decent burial. And you should read his book. That's how he started. And he became a multimillionaire in Alabama.
Wow.
And he actually financed a lot of the civil rights stuff, with Martin Luther King and so on like that. But in our tradition, it was very important to have a decent burial. And so insurance became the way in which we did that. Okay, so that's where that's from. We don't know about using insurance as a way of gathering
Well,
capital for the next, of growing wealth.
yeah.
We are not taught how to. That money is supposed to be used to make money. That's a mindset that we haven't quite. A lot of people haven't. I mean, not just black
It's not
people. A
just
lot of
black
white,
people. It is not just black
a
Yeah.
people.
lot of white people don't think about enough money to have that money making money for you.
Yeah.
That's that's a transition that most of us are not taught.
But I will
Okay.
say, I mean, I agree it's not just black people, but I will say, culturally speaking, when I was sitting down with, say, an Asian family or a white family, it was just like they got it immediately. Yes, they were asking me questions about like, you have this type of insurance, you have that, you have this investment, and I'm like, oh yeah, heck yeah, and whereas if I
Yeah.
was talking to a black family, there was a lot of convincing, a lot of teaching,
Yeah.
a lot of uh, but
Mhm.
but it wasn't every black family, like you said. It's a generalization, but it's not a reality for all families. It's not reality for
Yeah.
all, because there were some
That's
well-educated black people that I sat down with that were, again, just like some of the white families saying, "Hey, yeah, I want this insurance. I like that insurance. Tell me about it."
yeah.
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 So we are really short on time. So what I'd like to do, I mean, unfortunately, I didn't get to Dr. Robbins and Ellen's question. We can bring you back if you'd like to join us again,
Glad
Attorney
to.
Mitchell, because there's
That-
so many questions I
Oh,
think we could ask you. We could probably keep you on here for like 2 hours.
yeah.
But
Anytime. Just let me know. I'd
okay,
really be glad to come back. Yeah.
I want to thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining
Wonderful.
us, and telling your story. But
You.
are there any final words that you have for everyone out there?
Get a will. Just
keep keep it simple.
will, okay, do your beneficiary designations and take care of this. It's really important, especially when you have children. But take care. That's part of your responsibility for taking care of the next generation. It's an act of love. It really is. I mean, people don't realize that
It really
taking
is.
care of your family, whether it's just your spouse or your significant other, certainly your children, just do it. And then it's
Yeah.
done. You can
Yeah.
always change it.
I'm gonna
So
just
just go on and
one little tip. So, I mean, as soon as I got it, right? Because I wasn't taught these things growing up, but as soon as I got it, I immediately got $1 million policy. I had no children. I wasn't had no family. I was just like, I'm going to get $1 million, and I'm going to
Mhm,
make sure that when I have my family, we are good to go. And
mhm,
I mean, it's just something. Once you realize the value, it's a
mhm.
fantastic thing.
It's
Again,
huge. Yeah.
thank you very much for joining us, Attorney
Having
Ethel
me.
Mitchell. Make sure you check out her show, uh, Law Talk with Attorney Ethel Mitchell. Also, the podcast. Go ahead and subscribe to that. You can go and subscribe to it right now. All right.
Well, thank
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
you. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Again, don't forget, subscribe to Attorney Ethel Mitchell's podcast, Law Talk with Ethel Mitchell. Great guest. Great guest.